Friends, we can all see that many white bloggers have millions of followers. Please support me too, because my followers are still few. Black bloggers also deserve to be famous. Raised fist medium dark skin tone. My friends, let's unite and lift each other up. Please press subscribe button and like. The long marble hallway of the Coleman mansion was a river of polished stone, silent and cold. It was the kind of silence that money buys, a heavy, sterile quiet broken only by the faint hum of a distant air conditioner. It was close to midnight, and Richard Coleman, a man whose name was synonymous with London's elite, was pacing it. He was a monument of success, a man of wealth and power. But tonight, in the suffocating stillness of his own home, he felt like a ghost. Sleep, the one thing he couldn't acquire, had fled. He walked past walls lined with priceless art, past sculptures that cost more than entire neighborhoods. The light from glimmering chandeliers cast long, dancing shadows, turning his mansion into a vast and lonely stage. He had everything, yet as he moved through the silent grandeur, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had nothing at all. The emptiness of the house was a mirror of his own. A sliver of light, an intruder in the all-encompassing darkness, caught his eye. It spilled from beneath the laundry room door. His brow furrowed in annoyance. The staff had strict schedules. The house should be attuned by now. Curiosity, sharper than his initial irritation, pulled him forward. He twisted the brass handle and pushed the door open, ready to scold whoever had broken the rules. He froze. There, on the cold tile floor, a small figure was curled up next to a basket of towels. It was Angela Brown, one of his maids. She was asleep. Her thin frame hunched against the chill of the floor, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. There was no blanket, no pillow, nothing but the hard, unforgiving surface beneath her. The harsh light of a single, flickering bulb above cast a stark shadow over her sleeping form. His first thought wasn't concern. It was a cold spike of anger. Asterisk, why on earth would she be sleeping on the floor? Did she think this was a campsite? Asterisk. Angela, he said, the word a sharp blade in the quiet room. She stirred at once, a gasp of fear escaping her lips. Her eyes, heavy with exhaustion, blinked against the light. When she saw him, her body stiffened, a silent apology in her posture. "Sir, Mr. Coleman, I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice a fragile tremor. "Sorry." Richard's voice was edged with impatience. He stepped inside. "You have a bed in the staff quarters. Why are you sleeping on the floor?" She looked down, her hands twisting in her lap, her shoulders tight, the silence stretched between them, thick with shame. "Speak, Angela," he said, his tone softening slightly, though still firm. Finally, she let out a shaky breath. "The bed. I gave it to Maria," she said, her voice barely audible. "She's been sick with a fever. She needed it more than I did." Richard blinked, taken aback. This was not the defiance he'd expected, but a new question immediately replaced the old one. "So you've been doing this for a while?" She nodded, still refusing to meet his eyes. "And why didn't you put her in a guest room? I have 20 of them that sit empty." Her lips parted, and she hesitated, as if the truth was too heavy to speak. "I didn't think it was right," she whispered. "The guest rooms, they're for visitors. We're just staff." Her words hit him with the force of a physical blow. To her, the chasm between them was not just one of wealth, but of an uncrossable social divide. She felt she had no right to his comfort, not even in her time of need. Richard, a man who prided himself on control, on understanding every angle of a deal, felt a sudden, profound confusion. "That still doesn't explain why you keep doing this," he pressed, his voice losing its authority. "You could have at least asked me." The washing machine's soft hum filled the room. She seemed so small against the vast, impersonal space of the mansion. A tear, unshed but glistening, reflected the cold light in her eyes. "There's more, sir," she said, her voice a thread of sorrow. Richard's jaw tightened. He crossed his arms, waiting. He was a man who demanded directness, but something in her trembling voice told him to be silent. "I send most of my salary back home," she confessed, the words a raw, painful admission, "to Birmingham. My sister, she passed away. Her children, my nieces and nephews, are all I have left. I promised her I'd take care of them. They need food, clothes, books for school. Whatever I can send, I send. Some days, I don't leave much for myself. Her voice broke as she continued. I eat little, just bread and tea sometimes. I wear the same clothes until they're rags. I sleep on the floor if I have to. It doesn't matter what I go without, as long as those children have a chance. As long as they don't feel the pain of losing everything, it's worth it. The plain truth of her words fell like a stone in the quiet room. Richard's world, a fortress built of private jets and company mergers, suddenly felt brittle. He, a man who casually spent more on a single bottle of wine than Angela earned in a month, felt his throat tighten. Here she was, breaking herself in silence for the sake of a promise. He turned away, pacing the small room, his expensive Italian shoes a jarring counterpoint to the humble space. For the first time in years, he had no answer. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" he asked, his voice now a quiet rasp. Angela shook her head, a small, almost apologetic smile touching her tear-streaked face. "I didn't want pity. I didn't want charity. I just wanted to work honestly, send what I could, and keep my promise to my sister." Her quiet dignity cut him deeper than any accusation could have. Just then Maria, the sick maid, appeared in the doorway. She was pale and thin, clutching her shawl around her shoulders. "Sir, it's true," Maria said softly, her Spanish accent thick with concern. "Angela gave me her bed. She's been sleeping here for more than a week. I told her not to, but she wouldn't listen. She said I needed to recover." Richard stared at them both. Words failed him. The man who controlled empires felt utterly powerless. His chest burned, his eyes stung, and he realized with a shock that he was crying. The billionaire, the man who had it all, was weeping in his laundry room. "Angela," he whispered, his voice cracking, "you've given more than I ever have, and you had nothing to give. I thought I understood wealth, but I was wrong. You are the richest person in this house." She shook her head, embarrassed. "No, sir, please don't say that. I only did what I had to do." But Richard raised a hand, stopping her. "No, listen to me," he said, his voice now steady, but heavy with emotion. "I built my empire on numbers, on deals. But none of that means anything compared to what you've done. You gave up your comfort, your food, your health, for love. That's something money can't buy." The mansion no longer felt like a monument to his success. The polished gold handles and framed artworks felt hollow, lifeless. He finally understood that his wealth had been a gilded cage, blinding him to what truly mattered. He looked at Angela, small on the floor, and Maria, weak in the doorway, and in that moment, he knew he could never be the same. He made a promise that night, not out of charity, but out of a profound sense of respect. He would take care of Angela and her family. He would make sure those children never went hungry, never missed school, never lost hope. He would raise them up, not as an act of pity, but as a tribute to her sacrifice. And he vowed to change himself. The next morning, long before dawn, Richard sat in his study. The room where he had signed contracts worth millions became a place for a different kind of deal. He called his lawyer, his accountant, his closest advisors. His voice was calm, but those who knew him could hear the difference. This wasn't business. It was personal. He established trust funds for Angela's nieces and nephews. He arranged for Maria's immediate medical care, calling a private doctor to the mansion. He commissioned his architect to design new staff quarters, each with proper heating and private bathrooms. He instructed his chef that no staff member was to ever go without a proper meal again. But most importantly, he made space in his life for Angela, not as an employee, but as a teacher, a student of her quiet grace. Days turned into weeks, and Richard found himself drawn to a new kind of wealth, the wealth of giving, of kindness, of sacrifice. He began funding community centers, scholarships, and offering support without any public fanfare. He didn't care for the credit. He cared only for the feeling he had discovered that night, the feeling of being human again. Angela never asked for thanks. She continued her work, humble as ever, polishing silver, folding sheets, sweeping the floors of a mansion that had finally begun to feel like a home. The staff, once silent and distant, now held their heads higher, knowing they were seen as more than just a workforce. The air in the mansion was warmer, lighter, filled not with a gleam of gold, but with the quiet dignity of respect. Some people whispered about the billionaire who had changed, calling it a publicity stunt. But Richard didn't care. He knew the truth. One woman, sleeping on a cold tile floor, had opened his eyes to life's real riches. And he would never forget it, because that night, in the quiet of his lonely mansion, he learned a lesson money could never buy. The richest people aren't those with the most money. They are the ones who give everything, even when they have nothing.